People were like, ColourPop, we love depth. And they were like, what? Are you talking to us? You must be talking to somebody else. Here's an Animal Crossing palette. Hello! Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. That was super sweet of you. Oh my goodness, what an exciting video we have for you today. I cannot wait to get into today's video, but first, let's talk about some accessories. I got my little Areja Linda earrings on today. They're so pretty. They're like green and marbled. They look like jade. They look really glamorous and heavy and fancy, right? But feel how light they are. Feel this. It's all acrylic or plastic or whatever this material is made of. I love them so much. Also, I'm wearing my Rockaway Beach shirt today. That's a beach in Queens where I live in New York City. And I'm wearing that to manifest actually being able to go to the beach this summer. I think that'll be great. I think we can do it. Hopefully I get to go to the beach this summer because you guys, I freaking love the beach. I love the ocean. I like salt. I love being among the seagulls. Me and the seagulls get along really well. I had an experience when I was younger where a seagull came up to me and tried to steal my towel, and rather than let that instill fear in me forever, I gained a lot of respect for seagulls because I don't know what he was gonna do with that towel, but I respect his right to wanting it. But that's not what this video is about. You did not click on this video to watch me uncover a childhood memory about seagulls. No, you clicked on this video because you, like me, have an interest in where the dang old makeup industry is going. So I did a video a couple days ago talking about weird new makeup releases, sort of a makeup anti-haul, and what's been really weird lately is that a lot of new makeup releases have been collabs, but not just regular collabs with influencers or makeup artists, collabs with intellectual properties. So in case you don't know, an intellectual property, I should have looked up a more reasonable explanation before, but basically it's like anything that's copyrighted. So like Disney is an intellectual property. When you collaborate with Disney, they own the rights to all of like the character portrayals and stuff. So yeah, Disney is the best example I can think of an intellectual property. It's makeup brands collaborating with non-makeup brands. And in that video, we facilitated the heck out of a conversation in the comments. You guys had so many incredible thoughts about this topic, and I asked you guys if you would be interested in me doing a whole video talking about the future of the makeup industry and where I think the makeup industry is going. And we're going to be specifically talking about the future of makeup collabs, but I do think it relates to the makeup industry as a whole. So if that sounds like a topic that is interesting to you and you want to talk about the future of the makeup industry and the future of makeup collabs, then I encourage you to please subscribe and keep on watching because it's coming at you right now. Oh, I also forgot to mention that I'm gonna be doing my makeup at the same time. Obviously, it's a makeup channel. We're talking about makeup, and you guys really enjoyed me doing my makeup on camera last time, or at least you told me you enjoyed me doing my makeup on camera last time. So I brought all my dang junk over here, and we're gonna do my makeup on camera again. I have a bunch of frantically written notes in my notebook here. Hopefully I can stay on topic, but with this video, like the last video, I would love to continue to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm gonna be including some comments of subscribers that left them on the last video that I thought were super, super brilliant. You guys, I swear I have the smartest audience in the world because I ask questions and I get such smart answers. I've often replied to you guys saying, I feel like I'm reading an article in your answer because you guys are just so dang smart and I love talking to you, and I just hope we can continue this conversation in the comments again. So the way I want to split up this video is I want to start by talking about where we were a few years ago with makeup collabs. So we'll start with that, then we're gonna move on to how that has changed today, and then where I think it's going in the future and where I want to see it go in the future. So that's the way things are gonna be split up in case you're interested, but now let me do some makeup. I'm probably not gonna be like super specific about things as I was with the last video. I'll try to show the products before I use them, but I'm probably not gonna be talking about like shade names or anything. But I am gonna be using my Nyx Cosmetics Flower Bomb palette today because I'm feeling very springy and this is just beautiful springy colors. So that's what I'm going to be using. Okay, so let's start off by talking about where makeup collabs were a few years ago. So by a few years ago, I mean probably anywhere between like 2015 to 2019, I would say, because as we all know, 2020 was a wash. And we'll talk about the effect that 2020 and the pandemic had on makeup collabs and everything in a little bit. But I want to start off by talking about kind of OG beauty YouTube, because makeup collabs at that time were super influencer focused. I mean, we all remember the first real, at least the first like mainstream influencer collab, that was Jaclyn Hill and Becca Cosmetics Champagne Pop. I wasn't even into makeup at the time, and I remember people talking about that. And as soon as I did start to get into makeup, like a couple years after that, that was one of the first products that I remembered seeing people use constantly. I mean, Becca highlighters in general, I feel like people used constantly, but specifically Jaclyn Hill's Champagne Pop highlighter was like a cult favorite of so many and is still something that a lot of people use. And I feel like other brands saw that collaboration happen and saw how wildly successful it was, and that just got the ball rolling, and it started being influencer collabs, influencer collabs, influencer collabs. I didn't think that would be so hard to say 3 times in a row. But Jaclyn Hill's collab with Becca really was the catalyst that started influencer collabs, because then after that we started seeing things like Too Faced collabing with Nikkie Tutorials, and we all know that was no good. Too Faced took advantage of Nikkie Tutorials. I still don't support Too Faced to this day for that reason and many other reasons, which I can get into in a different video if you're interested. But yeah, we all remember the Nikkie Tutorials collab, but that was wildly successful for Too Faced. And I know there were inconsistencies in the formula and everything, so I don't mean wildly successful in the sense that like it was a loved product that people still use today, like with the Champagne Pop highlighter. I mean wildly successful in the sense that they sold a lot of palettes. And then we can't talk about OG influencer collabs without talking about Morphe, because Morphe over a span of 3 years probably collaborated with like over 100 influencers. I'm just guessing, but I feel like that's gotta be pretty close. We saw the collaboration with James Charles in 2018 was obviously a huge one, but then they also collaborated with Manny MUA, they collaborated with Laura Lee, they collaborated with Jeffree Star. I mean, they collaborated with everyone. I think Kathleen Lights might have had a palette with them at some point. I mean, all of the huge influencers, beauty gurus on YouTube had a collab with Morphe at some point for the most part. Obviously, Jaclyn Hill had a lot with Morphe, but back in these OG YouTube days, 2015 to 2019, there were influencer collabs everywhere, not just with the brands I mentioned. I mean, so many brands were doing influencer collabs, and now we're gonna transition into the current day, and you just don't see that as much anymore. And I'm not saying you don't see any influencer collabs, because like clearly they are still around. I know I keep seeing an ad before my YouTube videos for this Becca Cosmetics collab with 2 influencers who I don't know about, but like I'm not saying they're extinct. There still are influencer collabs, but they are way less notable. I mean, the fact that I can't name anybody specifically that currently has a collab with a big brand is, you know, telling to how few and far between they have become. I was just thinking about earlier, how do you guys remember when ColourPop used to do like 5 collabs a year, or at least like 3 to 5 collabs a year with influencers? I remember there was a year where they collaborated with Makeup Shayla, they collaborated with Karen from I Love Sarai, they collaborated with, oh, what's her name? That girl, My Life is Eva, they collaborated with her. ColourPop used to do so many collaborations within a year, and then cut to 2020, they only had 1. And granted, we're gonna talk about the pandemic and its effect on everything, but that's a big jump, you know, to jump from having so many collaborations in a year to over the last year, and even this year they haven't collaborated with anyone so far this year. And a thing I think is interesting about ColourPop, and there's a lot, oh my gosh, I could make a whole video dedicated to ColourPop and the way their brand has just like gone through so many evolutions and changes. But what I think is interesting about ColourPop is now we're not seeing them do as many I keep forgetting to do my makeup, sorry. But what I find is interesting about ColourPop is while we're seeing them kind of pull back on collaborations, now what I've noticed with ColourPop is they're doing more creator bundles. So there's this girl who I really like on Instagram. She's a super talented makeup artist. I think her name on Instagram is Glam by Michaela. She does these beautiful graphic liner looks. Oh my gosh, she's amazing. And ColourPop just gave her a bundle. So she had like their rainbow palette in there, she had a colorful mascara in there, and that was like her bundle that people could buy. It's not products that she created, it's a collection that she curated from ColourPop products, which I think is pretty cool. You know, I'm not opposed to that. I just find that interesting that ColourPop is seeming to move more towards collections rather than creating products with influencers or makeup artists. And I mean, I'm sure it's cheaper for them, you know, they don't have to come out with new products. It's probably a really smart marketing move. It's a way for them to keep hype up around these older products. And Glam by Michaela is not a micro-influencer by any means. I mean, I don't know your definition of micro-influencer, but I think she has like 50 to 80,000 followers. So they are creating collections with somewhat smaller influencers. Okay, so now I feel like I've talked a pretty good amount about where influencer collabs have gone through today, but where makeup brands are moving more into with collabs is collaborations with intellectual properties. And if you missed my last anti-haul, I talked about a lot of these. I call them weird makeup collabs just because I find brands collaborating with intellectual properties very weird. Sephora collaborated with Coach, Elf collaborated with Chipotle, HipDot collaborated with Peeps, like the candy Peeps. What do you call Peeps candy? Little marshmallow buddies? I love Peeps. Personally, that collaboration just made me want to buy Peeps. It didn't make me want to buy the collection though. But there's been so many strange collabs. ColourPop collaborated with Bambi. ColourPop and Disney, here's the deal. This is just, I'm gonna take you in real close. Let me whisper to you for a second because I don't want anyone to hear me. This is just a theory, but I feel like ColourPop's gotta have some deep contract with Disney, right? Because they've done so many Disney collabs. You got the Hocus Pocus collection. You got the Mandalorian, which is a Disney entity. You got the Bambi collection. Like, they're always collaborating with Disney. Even before then, they used to do the Disney designer collections for Halloween. They did a Disney villains collection. It used to just be for Halloween. It seemed like they were collaborating with Disney, but now it feels like it's more and more and more. And it's I don't know. Like I said, this is all allegedly, these are just wild assumptions that I'm making, but I feel like ColourPop's gotta have something going on with Disney, right? Oh my gosh, I wanna hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think about that. But as I was saying, the makeup brands have really been turning to these intellectual properties for collaborations. And I am just really fascinated with why this has happened. And I think that there are so many different reasons why we have seen this move towards makeup brands no longer collaborating with makeup artists, but collaborating with intellectual properties. And I think the first thing that's most important to talk about is the impact of the pandemic on these makeup brands. Now, we have seen recently Becca, which I was just talking about with Champagne Pop and Jaclyn Hill, Becca has announced that they are closing their doors as of September. And they didn't give us too many details as of why. I mean, I think a lot of people weren't totally surprised just because their last kind of many launches have been flops. They had the Zero Pigment Foundation, which was just roasted by literally everyone. And then I think they had another product. I don't know, they came out with this beautiful like skin tint type of thing, or maybe it was a concealer. They came out with some sort of complexion product that actually got recalled. That was wild. I feel like that kind of got swept under the rug a little bit, but that happened. But I was bringing this up because Becca has said that along with many other businesses, they were hurt by the pandemic, and they kind of alluded to that being the reason why they're shutting down, which is just wild because Becca is owned by Estee Lauder. That's their parent company, and Estee Lauder has so many brands underneath them. I mean, Estee Lauder comes out with their own makeup products, but they also are the parent company to MAC, and that is the only brand I can name right now, but I'll put some other brands on the screen here that would probably surprise you that they are owned under the parent company of Estee Lauder, but Estee Lauder is huge. So a lot of people are speculating, you know, maybe it wasn't just the pandemic, maybe Estee Lauder is looking to acquire a new business that would be in competition with Becca. So I don't know about all of that, but we need to talk about the effect of the pandemic on the makeup industry. All right, I finished my eyeshadow. Now we're moving on to water activated liners. I'm using the by Melolops X Cutcreaser ones. I love them so much. Okay, but as I was saying, the effect of the pandemic on these makeup brands. So I think it's important to point out that just because, I mean, the brands that we're seeing collaborate with intellectual properties are not small makeup brands, aside from HipDot, which I mentioned the HipDot Peeps collab in my last video, and my friend Raven pointed out to me that HipDot is an indie brand, which I was unaware of, and she brought up a really good point that that's actually kind of cool that they've made their whole thing collaborating with other brands, considering they're an indie brand. brand, like, I don't know, I somewhat applaud them for that. I'm still kind of weird about it, but Hip Dot is an indie brand. I didn't know that. Thank you so much, Raven. But a lot of these brands that we see collaborating with intellectual properties are large brands that you wouldn't really think are suffering from the pandemic. I mean, obviously everyone has suffered, right? But you would think some of these larger brands would have more money put away. But I think it's important to note, especially with brands like Becca, we've seen that brands big and small have suffered from the pandemic. And that could be from a variety of reasons. It could be because they get a lot of their supplies overseas. We all know there were huge delays with getting products overseas. So I think a lot of brands had to either push off launches or just completely forfeit launches altogether. And I'm sure that had a huge financial toll on their businesses. I also know that in California specifically, I'm not sure if this happened in any other states, but I know for a while the governor of California called all factories to be shut down. So I know ColourPop wasn't able to ship out any orders. They didn't close down their website or anything, but everything was for a pre-order because they weren't allowed to have anybody in their shipping facility, which I'm sure took a toll on their business. So, you know, I just think it is important to note that a lot of these brands could potentially be collaborating with intellectual properties to try to revive their businesses. Because I know I said a lot in my last video how I feel like majority of intellectual property collabs are just cash grabs. They're just created so that collectors will buy things, fans of that specific intellectual property will buy things, you know, especially with Disney collabs. You know, there's so many people, Disney has such a cult following, and there are so many people who are collectors of Disney products. So, you know, if you release a Disney collab, you know you're gonna sell out of it because people who don't even care about makeup typically are gonna buy that collab because it's Disney. So I think a lot of these collabs were created to intend to try to save the businesses, you know? It might not even just be the makeup brand, it could be the intellectual property they're collaborating with. I mean, I don't know about Disney. I feel like Disney's got money coming out of their bums, they got so much money, but you know, maybe other brands like Coach, the Coach X Sephora collection. I don't know many people that were buying designer handbags during the pandemic. I mean, a lot of us are trying to pinch our pennies to pay rent. So it's possible Coach was suffering as well, and maybe that's why they went into a collab with Sephora. I don't know. Again, these are just all things I'm guessing. They're just all presumptions. I would love to hear your opinions on all of this, but this is just how I can think of it logically in my brain. I don't know about Chipotle. Maybe Chipotle was suffering. You know, Chipotle's kind of always in a scandal. They've had so many E. coli outbreaks. Even during the pandemic, I read something the other day that said that they were under fire because they weren't following health code rules in all of their stores. So I don't know, maybe Chipotle's in the red and they thought maybe this would help them. I don't know how much they benefit from these collabs. Like, I don't know if it's like a 50-50 split, but clearly e.l.f. had to pay at least to use their name and to use their logo and their intellectual properties. So I'm sure they're getting some money from that, and who knows, maybe they needed it. So that's one thought on why we might be seeing all of these makeup brands collaborating with intellectual properties right now. Another thought that was pointed out by a lovely subscriber of mine, and I will put their comment on the screen here, that it could be possible that brands are moving more towards intellectual property collabs because a lot of the big influencers that once were like brands' go-to influencer collabs now have their own brands. And there's so many examples of that. You got Jaclyn Hill, I know James Charles is working on his own brand now, Jeffree Star, Patrick Star, Laura Lee, Manny MUA. All of these influencers who used to like be the go-to for collabs have their own brands now, you know? And there's so many more. That's just like to name a few of the big influencers. So you don't really see them wanting to collaborate anymore because, you know, they have their own makeup to promote. And obviously we don't see that everywhere. We know Jaclyn Hill still collaborates with Morphe, although, okay, I want to whisper to you again. We got to tell secrets again. It's not a secret. It's all just allegedly. But I have heard that allegedly Jaclyn Hill Cosmetics is now owned under the same parent company as Morphe. So like maybe that's something contractually that she still has to do collabs with them or still can do collabs with them because it's owned by the same company. But you know, that might be the reason why we're still seeing Jaclyn Hill Cosmetics collaborate with Morphe. And when Morphe did their collab with Jeffree Star products were sold in Morphe stores. So I feel like those made sense, but like you don't see Patrick Starr collaborating with MAC anymore. You don't see Jaclyn Hill collaborating with Becca anymore. You just don't see these big influencer collabs anymore. And as this wonderful subscriber pointed out, it could be because they're focused on their own brand. I'm sure after a point of doing so many collabs, you probably start to get an idea of what the business is like and want to make your own product. I mean, also you can make more money. You don't have to split the profits with a company. Granted, businesses don't typically make money for a while, but you know what I'm saying. It's probably more enticing to an influencer to make their own brand and to have complete control over the products than to collaborate with a brand that still retains like 90% control, especially if the quality. I mean, I think we all saw Nikki tutorials and Too Faced and how the quality was so inconsistent and how it hurt Nikki's image because people were like, wow, she told me this was going to be great quality and it wasn't. And that whole situation sucks because so much of that was beyond Nikki's control and she wasn't even paid well to do that collaboration. I'm sure a lot of influencers saw that and you know, that kind of hurts your trust a little bit. I mean, granted, Too Faced is just like a shady brand, so that doesn't mean that all brands conduct business that way. But I mean, we also saw with the Jaclyn Hill palette and how Morphe changed the formula 2 years after it came out, seemingly without Jaclyn knowing. I mean, I don't know, maybe she did know the whole time, but it seemed like they just did that without telling anyone. So having your own makeup brand, you have more control over the formulas and the ingredients in those products. So I feel like I beat that point to death, but you know, I definitely agree with this person who left the comment that it seems like brands aren't collaborating with big influencers as much because they have their own brands. But then another part of that is that they are also not really collaborating with smaller influencers. I mean, the only time we really see smaller influencer collabs are with indie brands, and I don't know why the big brands don't want to collab with smaller influencers because they notoriously sell out, they notoriously do well. You know, that's kind of the thing with the small influencer community, is that they've built up a lot of trust with their audience because they don't have a massive audience. They're able to interact with their audience more. I mean, as a micro influencer, I might be biased, but I respond to every single one of you guys' comments because I get enough comments that I can respond to every single one of them without it being overwhelming. You know, I don't get thousands and thousands of comments to go through, so because of that, I'm able to interact with you guys. And I wish larger brands would see the value in that more, because clearly the indie brands have seen the value in it. I mean, Smoky Glow X Midas, that palette is being restocked for what feels like the 10th time this month. And then you have Beaute Bean X Shroud, and I know Beaute Bean X Shroud was like a whole thing and that was kind of a bit of a disaster. I feel very bad because I got my pre-order in within the first like 10 seconds of it being open, so I was one of the first people to receive my palette. I'm sorry, I was very quick, but I know that's been kind of a disaster of a launch. But I mean, we also saw how many people wanted to buy that, you know? And not even just because of the people too. And I feel like that's what's so cool about small influencer collabs, is that you really see the artistry pop out. I wasn't even subscribed to Beaute Bean on YouTube when she released that palette. I was following her on Instagram, but I wasn't subscribed to her YouTube channel, and I wanted to buy that palette because she created a beautiful palette with a beautiful color story. And I did the same thing with the Becca Cosmetics Companion palette. That was in collaboration with Monica Jones. I didn't know who Monica Jones was when I bought that palette. I felt very fortunate that I saw Trendmood post about it. I hadn't even heard of Copacetic Cosmetics before, and it was love at first sight. I saw that palette and I didn't care who was attached to it. I just knew that I wanted to have it because it was a beautifully curated palette that clearly two artists worked on together and made something beautiful. And I think that's so cool. And that's kind of my hope for the future, is that more larger brands, even honestly, I don't care if the larger brands don't do this because I've kind of become an indie makeup exclusive person. I'm sorry, they're just more exciting. You know, a mainstream brand hasn't released something that I was excited about in so long, but the indie brands are constantly releasing things I'm excited about. But that's not what this video is about. But I do hope in the future that more brands just generally will utilize small influencers and smaller makeup artists, because I think the product is always incredible. Okay, I truly cannot believe how long it took me to do my eye makeup on camera, but it's fine. We're getting to the end of my points here, and it takes me me a lot less time to do my base makeup. So now we've kind of moved into the section of what I want to see from the makeup industry in the future. And I already talked about how I would like them to collaborate with smaller makeup artists and smaller influencers more. But another thing I'd like to see from makeup brands in the future is just more collaborative collabs. And I know that sounds redundant. I know you're probably like, oh, what are you even talking about? All collabs are collaborative, but that is not true. I do not think that all collabs are created alike. I think sometimes we see incredible collabs like the Raw Beauty Kristi at For a Sight palette, which I did not buy because I don't like ColourPop's formula, but that was a beautiful collab. And so many people said that was like the best thing that ColourPop has put out in years. Like that was such a wildly loved collab. It also sold out very quickly and so many people just said it was incredible because you could tell that was truly a collaborative collab. I mean, Kristi designed the packaging, she designed the color stories. I mean, she based everything off of different places in the Pacific Northwest where she's from, where she loves. There was so much love put into that collab. I mean, you could tell it was truly her baby. And I hope that brands continue to do that more because I feel like for every Raw Beauty Kristi at For a Sight palette, there's a Nikita Dragun X Morphe palette. When I saw that palette come out, I was like, did they do anything? I mean, I'm a strong believer that most of Morphe's releases are not really all that thought out. I don't know why they're still committed to doing 35 pan eyeshadow palettes. I feel like nobody wants those anymore. They're too big and they're too repetitive and we don't need them anymore. But that's not what this video is about, that's besides the point. But when I saw that Nikita Dragun collab, I was like, okay, this looks like every other Morphe palette with like a random glitter thrown in and a couple of purple shades. And that's the only thing that really tells me that it's Nikita. But it just felt like that one was very much just thrown together to sell palettes because Nikita Dragun stans are gonna buy it because it's Nikita Dragun. So my hope for the future with collabs is even if brands don't want to collaborate with small influencers, I would love for them to put a little more care into the collabs. I wish that they would really take more time to work with the individual person to not only just make it like their personality, you know, because I think that's fine for like the fans, but make it something different. The Raw Beauty Kristi palette with ColourPop, I'm sorry to keep going back to this palette, but it's possibly like the best collab of all time, at least with a mainstream brand. And I feel like it was so good because it's so different from everything else that ColourPop has. She offered depth in the shades, which I don't think ColourPop has ever done before, at least not very often. So the fact that Kristi offered like kind of a rainbow grunge palette that actually had depth in it just added so much for ColourPop. That was good not only for Kristi, and it was not only like a Kristi palette, it was a palette that added something new to ColourPop's repertoire that I wish they would build off of and do more stuff like that, because clearly people were like, ColourPop, we love depth, and they were like, what, are you talking to us? You must be talking to somebody else. Here's an Animal Crossing palette. But yeah, so I hope to see more collabs that actually benefit both the person and the brand and aren't just like personality collabs, but are collabs that actually offer something new to the beauty industry. And I know it's tough. I know it's an oversaturated industry. I know that there is already a lot and everything has basically been done at this point, but at the same time, I don't think it has. Because have you ever seen a palette that looked like the Butte Bean X Shrouded's Freaking Bats palette before? Formula aside, controversy aside, have you ever seen a palette that looks exactly like that? No, I haven't at least. And I just think there are more creative color stories to be created. Whether or not the formula is new or anything is a different thing, but I think there are new things to be created in the beauty industry still. I would also love to see more brands collaborating that are both makeup brands. The only one that I can think of right now, I'm sure that there have maybe been other ones done, and if you know of any, let me know in the comments, but Drench Cosmetics and Midas Cosmetics just collaborated on their Genesis palette, which they put together for Black History Month. It's supposed to be a celebration of Black history. They announced it during February Black History Month, but it's coming out now. Mine actually just shipped. I'm so excited I'm gonna do a video with it. But I think that's so cool to see two indie makeup brands collaborating. And it doesn't even have to be indie makeup brands. Why not have brands collaborate? Oh my gosh, what if like Natasha Denona and Pat McGrath collaborated? Two makeup artists collaborating? That would be so cool. I would love to see that. I know they're in competition with each other, but I think it would be so cool to see these brands work together because one, you're expanding your audience because all of these brands have like a cult following of people who will just buy the products for the brands. So imagine if you put these two powerful brands together, oh my gosh, they'd be untouchable. It would be wild. And I'd love to see with more indie brands and everything too, but I just think that could be fun. That's something I would like to see in the future of the makeup industry for sure. Okay friends, I'm gonna finish off the rest of my face on camera real quick. I'm sorry I didn't pace myself well enough, but I'm gonna finish off the rest of my face real quick and then I'll come back and give you my final thoughts. All right, look at me. I got my full face of makeup on. I will get better at talking and doing my makeup at the same time, but I just had so much to say and I'm sure I missed things, so I would love to hear what you guys think about this topic. Where do you think the beauty industry is going? Do you think after brands recover from the pandemic, and I say that lightly because I understand that recovering from the pandemic for all of us is going to take a long time. It's not just gonna be like 2 months from now we're like, oh, well, we're all better now, everything's back to normal. So I know it's gonna be a long recovery, but do you think after brands recover financially that they are gonna go back to doing more collaborations with people rather than companies? Or do you think that this is something that's here to stay? I would love to hear your thoughts, so definitely let me know down below where you think the makeup industry is going and if you want me to do more videos like this. I love talking about trends, I love talking about the makeup industry, and I hope you enjoy these videos too. So if you do, please give this video a big thumbs up. That will let me know that you want to see more videos of this kind. And if you made it to the end of the video, I would love to have you subscribe. I post new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's 1, 2, 3 times a week. Turn on that notification bell so you never ever miss an upload, or if you don't want to turn it on, just come back here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and I'll be here for you, baby. So thanks so much. Check out my description box for all of the makeup on my face today. I did add a little bit of extra shimmer from the Becca Cosmetics Companion palette because of course I did. Also in my description box I will have a bunch of Black Lives Matter resources. That includes petitions to sign, places to donate, and ways to help protesters. So please click on those links if you haven't yet. And I thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! Can't wait to see you again. I'll see you back here in just a couple days. Oh, I miss you. I'll miss you so much. Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye.